Hey everyone, Coach Patrick here, Endurance Nation, back with another weekly video cast podcast update. Every week I sit down and talk with you about topics relevant to endurance training and racing. Our goal here inside Endurance Nation is to make you the smartest athlete you can possibly be. Smarter is faster. We connect the two inside the team using our community and leveraging the experience of hundreds of members who are just like you, who train and race together to make sure that they're having the best experience overall from a physiological perspective, but also making it super fun. And engaging, using accountability, all sorts of metrics. Today's topic, requested by the team, is how to race recap like a pro. So for those of you who don't know, inside the team, we have a pretty strict protocol in terms of how people race. And the most important thing you do before your race is actually not the workouts. It's not the race simulations, which we are known for. It's for our race plan. We actually have people write out a race plan. Like, what am I going to do? And this is really important because it cements inside the athlete what the structure of the plan will be. When you start putting things on paper, whether they're bullets, paragraphs, stick figure drawings, whatever works for you, people start to put the pieces together and then they start adjusting, right? Because once you see it all laid out, whether it's a whiteboard or your computer screen or a piece of paper, all of a sudden you start realizing, step 3 should really be above step 2. Step 5 is actually several different steps that I need to break out. Step 7 means that I actually need to get some stuff that I don't have right now in order to make step 7 happen. I've got to figure that out. And that process actually eliminates a great deal of friction and helps set you up for success on race day. Race day itself is really just walking through a step order of execution elements related to your race, whether it's contextual, like what do I do on this part of the course or this discipline, or whether it's a strategic, what am I doing here, relative to the competition, what it is I want to do, or if it's just fundamental, right? Which is like, what is my nutrition plan? How am I executing that? Any given time, you're operating 3, 4, even 5 different layers of information that you have to be good at processing, and having that all written out is the first step to beginning to master it, right? Getting it out of your head, not just what's front of mind, but everything that's inside your mind, and then we organize it, and then we reabsorb it in that manner. So once we've done that, then we move to race recapping. Again, today's topic, how to race recap like a pro. And a lot of that starts actually with that plan. So I've got 5 ways that you can make sure you exit every single race with a smarter perspective on how you can tackle the next time you do this event or a similar type of event in the future. And this is really important because what we're looking for here as we build your athlete operating system, your athlete OS, what we're trying to build here is a progression of learning. Well, you can't always get fitter. You can't always do more work. You can always get smarter, right? Like that limiter is not the same. Unlimited capacity inside our brain cells relative to our quads and the strength inside those, or our back, or our flexibility levels, or our time to train. So smarter is always that unlimited and untapped capacity to make you better. So race recapping like a pro. Step number 1. This is super important. All the data, please. Commit before the race to make sure that you're capturing all your data. Baseline level stuff. We always have our watch and you have your splits, and any good race will have splits already lined up. So we'll have that coming in. On top of that, we want your heart rate data. That means you're going to need a heart rate monitor and you need some way to capture it. If it's your watch or if you have a bicycle computer or whatever it is you're using, please make sure that you're capturing that heart rate data. If you're using a watch or a bicycle computer, then you can also start to capture elements using GPS, such as speed, such as cadence, such as elevation, and so on. Ideally, second order data that we get is like power, right? Or pace, right? What do we get in terms of those numbers? So do you have a foot pod? Do you have a power meter on your bike? What are you using to capture data? Let's get all of that information in. On race day, as a coach and as an athlete, I want all of your data. I want to be able to go in after the race and see everything and then decide what's important and what's not important. Right? If I don't have data, if I just see that you ran from point A to point B and you did it in this speed, and there were times when you were moving faster than other times, that doesn't tell me very much. I don't see the elevation. I don't see the temperature. I don't see your pace. I don't see your heart rate. I don't have any contextual stuff. It's a super one-dimensional space, and it's really hard for me to make objective decisions. So set yourself up for success by committing to all of that data, knowing you have all the devices, you've charged all the devices are synced, powered on, calibrated with satellites, all the good stuff, and we're ready to run, okay? Number 2, cross-check your plan. So we have what happened on the day, and we have your race plan. So pull up that race plan, which I just outlined for you before, and then take out your data, whether it's by discipline, again, triathlon, or just a single event like ultra running. Pull it out and say, this is what I was going to do. I was going to drink 2 bottles an hour. Let's go through on the nutrition perspective. Did I drink 2 bottles an hour on this side, right? It's one thing to finish the bike or finish the run or whatever and look down and be like, oh, I've got all this fluid left. If that fluid was meant to be inside you, then something happened out there and you had to make a decision. Let's capture why that happened, right? So we reconcile the data and the things that happened with your plan, and we identify those areas. Like, did I do this? Yes or no? I said on hills that I would push at this effort or cap at this heart rate. Did I do that? Yes or no? Like, just let the data do the talking. Don't have it be subjective. We emerge from races with these subjective stories. It was crazy. I saw a Sasquatch. The weather was a tornado. There was hail, like in my eyeballs. We use all of that to obfuscate the data and the underlying decisions that we made. So there's some fuzziness in there around what did you actually decide to do? Like, did you decide to run at that heart rate, or did you skip that heart rate part? Like, did you stay inside your box and execute accordingly, or did you kind of go off the beaten path? We'll sort of cover that up with a story. We'll tell a story about what happened, which will sort of make rationale for the decisions that we're not talking about, but are clear from the data. You, if you want to get better, have to start using that data. So yes, no questions, data that you have, your race plan. What did you do? What didn't you do? Let's highlight those areas, okay? Step number 3, let's identify the line. Like, where in your race did things get real? Like, where did things get hard? You know, sometimes they can be challenging and you're still successful relative to your goals. Sometimes they get challenging and you're not successful, right? And so we want to know where that line is drawn. If it's a marathon, we typically call it mile 18. If you're doing like a 100-mile bike ride, it's typically somewhere between a mile like 70 and mile 80 where things start to get real. Where did things get real for you on the day? Or across the course of your multi-day event, and what exactly happened to you? That's what we want to know. So let's take a look at that inflection point. Sometimes you can see it looking at heart rate. Sometimes you just have those great notes that you've written down in your report, whatever it may be. We can see it in your cadence. We can see it in your power output. There's things that just sort of happen. Where does your race go from being good to being not so good? Let's zero in on that time, because that's where we want to draw a line, and we want to tell a story of before, which are all of the things that led to this line. Not just the race itself, but your execution, your nutrition, the choices you made around, you know, exertion and so on, right? And then after, what are all the things you did for damage control? And knowing both sides of that story is really important. So the pre-side, what would I do differently knowing that this line is going to happen here? I didn't think the line was going to happen in mile 18. I thought it was going to happen in mile 21. What can I do before mile 18 to make it mile 21, right? What are the decisions I make better here? And then afterwards as well, how did I handle this? And what are the choices that I made? What would I do differently? And that takes us to our next step, which is reverse engineering success. Now that we know what you plan to do, but know what you actually did, so we've identified a couple of key areas where things didn't work quite well. And we've identified the space in your day where things get hard on that timeline, wherever it may be. Let's call it mile 18 on that marathon. Then how do we reverse engineer it to make it better? Now knowing what you did, what would you do differently, right? Let's let hindsight be your friend in this scenario and say, you know what? I plan to drink, 1 cup of Gatorade at every other aid station. It was so hot that I think I should have had more early on when I could drink. I might have done 1 cup at the first 6 aid stations, all of them, and then backed off later down the road, right? Or maybe you would have taken a walk break every 30 minutes because of the increase in the heart rate, because of the heat, for example, right? Based on the terrain. Whatever those challenges may be, let's start using hindsight as my heart rate got a lot higher than I wanted. What would I do differently? Well, my heart rate gets above X. I implement this plan. Let's reverse engineer that. So we're going to exit from this with not just new knowledge, but we're going to exit with a new plan, which is the final piece here. So we take that experience that we've earned from our event and we turn it in. And in exchange for that, we get back out new knowledge. So I want you to take that experience and be like, I learned something. I did something. This is what I got. This is what happened. I'm exchanging it, going to the experience bank and saying, here, please accept my experience. The experience bank says, sure, here, I'll give you this knowledge back out. And now we're starting to eliminate the unknowns for you, for this year, for this sport, for this discipline, for this duration, for these conditions. We're limiting those unknowns so you can be better. So no matter what you choose next, whether it's another similar race or a different race or a different type of event or anything sort of in the same conditions or same discipline, etc., you'll be able to say, when temperature goes like this, I need to go like that. I thought I used to have to go like this, but this didn't work. Obviously, I could see it in the data. So now I've got to go like that. And the goal is that every single one of these events, the multi-hour events, where we learn a great deal about nutrition, pacing, positional fitness, core strength, mental aptitude, mental concentration, ability to focus, ability to follow your own instructions, right? All of that, as we learn that process, we start to refine those pieces, because there's areas where we want you to focus attention, and we want you to really be all in and make better decisions. Like, I really need to be focused here. What do I do right now to solve this nutritional problem I have in my gut? But there's other places where it's not very hard. I just got passed by someone in my age group. Do I or do I not follow them? That's a very different decision, and it's much easier. And we want to set you up to handle those challenges, which are ego driven, but very easy to solve, relative to places where we do need that attention, and we need you all in to decide, how are you going to solve this nutritional challenge? Is it this late in the race, or since you're running and not cycling, or since you're just before the start of a big hill, or if you're only 2 miles to go to the finish? What would you do differently in terms of how you handle things? And sometimes it's not just a mistake. Sometimes it's also something you did well. Like, you made a decision and actually things were awesome. Let's capture that. Let's not just have it be a function of serendipity. Let's turn it into something that you'll actually use strategically going forward to make all of your races be better. And in fact, sort of stress test it a little bit to see if it truly is the magical elixir that you think it is. So to recap here, for race recapping like a pro, step one, commit to all the data. If you can get more data, I realize it's a financial thing, get the data, capture it. It makes a big, big difference, right? Number two, cross-check your plan. What you did versus what you plan to do. Let's identify those areas where the pieces don't match up, right? You got a circle over here and we got a triangle over here. Why doesn't this match? Let's capture what that is, so we can start to understand the different elements that broke down on an element by element basis and not from a story perspective. Number two, let's identify when things got real. You have a story about where things got tough, but let's look at the data, let the data drive that decision. Where does the heart rate start to deflect? Where does the power start to drop from once you cannot recover, right? That ability to turn back around again after some rest or recovery in the course of a day is a clear sign that you've crossed that line of exertion, and now we're sort of just doing damage control. Where's that line for you? Let's capture it and see what lessons we can learn from it, because we can divide the before story and fix that, and we can do the after story, which takes us to our next bullet, reverse engineering. Now that we know the before and the after, let's use hindsight to our tool, or as a tool effectively, to make sure that we reverse engineer a plan that works for you. The new version of this, exchanging that experience for a new plan, we're going to say, hey, now I have a better plan. Like, this was my plan going in. Now I have a better plan exiting. Not just, I had a good plan going in, a bunch of stuff happened, no idea really how to reconcile it, but in 6 months I get to do it again, and you're going to show up and go through the same exercise of make a plan, never really stress test it, never learn from it, and go again. And it just ends up being sort of like Groundhog Day. All right. Really excited to talk to you about this topic. It is very important. Not everyone wants homework when they're an endurance athlete, but it makes a massive difference to your performance. Better performances yield better outcomes, better motivation, and help you make better decisions with your training as well over time. So super important to get invested. As a reminder, you can join Endurance Nation online. We're at endurancenation.us. Enter your email to be on our newsletter, enter our wait list. The team is closed every month. We have a few slots available depending on how membership changes, but we do open in October, December, and April to bring in new members for our full, half, or just race periods of the year. So if you are interested, definitely head over to endurancenation.us, sign up for that newsletter, get on our wait list, and we'll be sure to message you and let you know when you can join us to capture lessons like this, training plans, coaching, resources, videos, podcasts, everything, and much, much more. All right, folks, take care. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next time.